morning, YouTube. Welcome back to my channel. For those of you that are new around here, hi and welcome. My name is Randazzo and I am a chemistry teacher in New Jersey. The time has finally arrived. I can now talk about how it went with the choice board. I am happy to report that it went very, very well. One of the modifications I made to the choice board between the last time we talked and now is I wanted to include different lab safety notes and cleanup procedures. I also wanted to be a little bit more explicit about the grading criteria, so I created a rubric. So the rubric incorporated a lot of pieces, but for the majority of the time, I was focusing on the fact that this is the phenomenon and we need to focus on the link between the observable and the unobservable. So it was their goal to identify the phenomenon, relate it to solutions, to represent their data how they see fit, and then to identify the relationship between the microscopic and the particulate, and to include the scientific theory that backs it up. So there was some research involved. And then finally, I did want to focus on the use of their terminology. So this was a rubric that was for all the students, for all the assessment choices. So it really kind of encompassed everything. Now, originally when I first spoke to you guys about what I wanted to do, I mentioned that I wanted to put a library of resources together for my students to conduct research. And then that morning that I was actually getting ready to talk to my students on Google Meet, there was an email that came through from our librarian, and she reminded me of all the resources that we have. And I don't know what I was thinking, but that was one really easy thing that I could have just done right from the get-go. So what I did is I created a Google Doc very quickly and grabbed a lot of the links and the codes for the students to access some of those online articles. It worked out really well. And that way, when you give the students the resources, they're vetted resources, they're peer-reviewed more than likely, and they're not likely to just be Googling things and, including misinformation into their projects. To help keep my students a little bit more organized, I wanted to include a Google form each day that the students were working on the project. Now, obviously, the first day I kind of talked more about expectations and the norms for the actual project, but each subsequent day they had a Google form that was really no more than 2 or 3 questions, basically just checking in with them. So when you go to the Google form, the first part asks the students to first acknowledge the academic integrity policy. Basically, it's just a checklist of items. This is something that my principal asked all the teachers to include on any assignments that are graded. And then as they navigate to the next section, the students had to type in their last name and then their class period. And then finally, I asked my students some questions about their project. So I first asked them, what project did you choose? I also asked them, how's it going? Like, did you have any problems? And then finally, I also asked them, what's the plan for today? So I wanted to know what they were working on so that I can make sure to be there to help and support them. If my students were struggling and they indicated that the lab didn't work, for example, if they didn't reach out to me, I would reach out to them. As we got closer to the assessments, I did ask my students to select what assessment they're going to be working on. And then again, I wanted to reiterate to them in each form the academic integrity policy so that that was explicit. Once my students completed their assignment, they then had to submit it using a Google form. The Google form obviously reiterated to them the expectations and grading criteria for the assignment. Now, my students were asked to include a link to their product, whatever that was, whether it was a Google document or a slides presentation or their video link, whatever it was. And then I also asked them, was there anything else they wanted to tell me? I was overjoyed to see so many comments from students not only mention how much fun they had, but they also talked about how it brought their family closer together. While that was not intended, I could see how that could happen because the students were working at home, their parents or their siblings were probably watching what they were doing and wanted to help and observe. And I think that's really great. So you're probably curious as far as what my students chose and what it looked like. So please enjoy some authentic student artifacts brought to you by my wonderful chemistry students. Yesterday, I followed up with my students on their choice boards, and I wanted to know the answers to quite a few questions. Like, for example, I always want to know, did they have enough time to complete it? And it was pretty much unanimous. There was only one student in two of my classes that said that they felt that they didn't have enough time. So it was over a 95% agreed with that statement that they had enough time to complete the choice board. The other thing that I wanted to ask was, did they enjoy it? Some of them were a little apprehensive in the beginning when I first asked them how they felt about doing labs at home. To my surprise, there were quite a few students that said how much they really enjoyed completing the choice board more than they thought they would. And then finally, I wanted to know if my students would be willing to do another choice board again in the future. And I said, obviously, it may not be a lab choice board, but it could be something else. And for every single class, over 95% of students said that they would love to complete a choice board again. Overall, it was a lot of prep work to complete this choice board and get it ready for the students. But after doing it, I know that I can get better at it and I could do it a lot quicker in the future. I'm definitely going to try this not only with lab experiments, but I'm definitely thinking I'm going to try it in the future for assignments and assessments. We'll see how it goes because it does take a lot of prep work, but I think the overall result is really beautiful because my students had a great time doing it and expressing themselves in meaningful ways. I hope this video gave you some inspiration and maybe some confidence in maybe trying a few labs at home and see how your students do with it. Either way, I would love to know what you think about this project and if you're thinking about incorporating this into your classroom in the near future. In New Jersey, it unfortunately was announced that we will not be going back to school for the rest of the year. So I think that it'd be great to give your students an opportunity to try some of these activities that really require minimal equipment and materials. Thank you so much for watching. I look forward to hearing what you guys think, and I will talk to you soon.